Today we're going to be talking about communication skills in relationships based on biblical principles. We all know that communication is the key to any healthy relationship, but it's not always easy to get it right. So today we're going to be exploring 5 practical tips and strategies for effective communication using insights from the Bible. And I'm joined today by my amazing wife, my better half, Dr. Peeper McDonald.
It's important to know that we're, again, not experts. We've been married for 15 and a half years, but we are absolutely still learning, still growing. But it's our hope that by the end of this video, that you'll be able to better understand communication and how to communicate with kindness, respect, and love. Well, let's jump into tip number 1. So tip number 1 is listen actively. This is one of the most important aspects of effective communication, and it's active listening. In fact, I teach an intro to counseling skills, and this is one of the first things that we cover because listening shows respect and interest in the other person's thoughts and feelings, but it's not so easy all the time. What the Bible says in Proverbs 18:13 is that to answer before listening is folly and shame. And so it's important to listen with an open mind and an open heart. Avoid interruption and instead ask questions to show that you understand. Another way to practice active listening is to paraphrase what your partner or the person you're talking to has said to ensure that you understand their message correctly. So by listening actively, we can show that we respect and value their opinion. Many times we're thinking of what we're going to say back to the person when someone is speaking, especially when we're in a argument versus actually listening to them. Or another thing that happens is that we're on our phones when we need to have an important conversation.
Guilty.
And so, yeah. And so again, some of these things, we talk about this in the other video around conflict resolution, but it's important to remember that a lot of our communication skills are learned. We're not born knowing how to communicate, but we're taught that. And so sometimes those are unhelpful strategies for communication. And so it's important to notice what we do and how we can actually do better so other people feel listened to and heard. And I think another thing around this, when we're listening actively, we're also not actively trying to problem solve for the person. We're approaching them with empathy, which empathy is simply us trying to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, and compassion. And compassion is a little bit farther, a step farther than empathy, which is you're willing to even understand the suffering of the person that is happening, the things that are happening to them. And so we're not trying to problem solve, but we're approaching them with love, empathy, and compassion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know this is one that I struggle with a little bit. Just a little bit. But as guys, sometimes that can be, I hate to generalize, but a lot of times we tend to try to problem solve, and we try to listen to our spouse or listen to our friend and, oh, well, here's what you need to do. Like, I have all the answers and I'm helping you. And I get it. It's a great thing that we want to help people, and we want to help our friends, our relationships, our spouses, but sometimes they just need us to listen. And when I mean listen, I mean don't just listen audibly like I heard you, but like I listen and I'm now seeking to understand, which is going to be another point that we talk about later. But I'm trying to empathize and I'm trying to just be there for you and support you in that way. So tip number 2, speak the truth in love. Ephesians 4:15 says, instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. It's asking us, instead of what? Instead of gossiping, instead of bickering, instead of complaining, speak the truth in love. Why? Because being honest is crucial for any relationship. But it's also important to express your thoughts and feelings with kindness and love. This means avoiding hurtful words or the tone of your voice when expressing a concern or criticism. Avoid blaming or criticizing your partner, but instead encourage them. Speak the truth in love. It's okay. Create a safe space by speaking the truth in love, but make sure that you don't cross the line into blaming, into criticizing, into speaking over each other, interrupting, as we talked about. You speak your turn, and then listen for when your partner or your friend is speaking, and then don't just come back and just process what they're speaking to you, and then speak back in love. And it should be a conversation of truthful, honest, real, raw love in communication back and forth, so that way we can work it out.
Yeah, one thing that I carry with me from what my mom taught me, and I believe her mom taught her this, is it's not so much what you have to say, but how you say it.
Yeah.
and that's one that I am guilty of making a lot of mistakes around. And so with that, let's talk about tip number 3, avoid harsh words. Again, I am very guilty of this because when I am hurt, I tend to want to hurt. This is where the phrase hurt people hurt people. When communicating with your partner or a friend, it's important to choose your words carefully and to avoid speaking in anger or using hurtful language, and to be intentional. And so instead of reacting impulsively or defensively, which is very natural, we need to pause, take a deep breath, and choose our words carefully and again, intentionally. Proverbs 15:1 says, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." And probably many of us know that that is all too true. So remember that words have the power to build or destroy, and harsh words can damage a relationship. The Bible says that life or death are in the tongue, so we need to practice speaking life and not death. Harsh words can damage a relationship and also create a toxic atmosphere. So even when you don't agree with the person you're speaking with, you can show respect for them and their feelings when we practice avoiding those harsh words, and in addition to what you said earlier, Ben, that harsh tone.
Yeah, and I think too, we've heard this phrase, if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think we can reframe that because we do want to speak our truth in love. So maybe if you don't have anything nice to say, maybe pause, reflect, and think about how you can say it in a loving way. Because the issue is still there, and what you don't want is for it to fester inside of you and grow in bitterness and anger in the relationship. So sometimes you need to pause, and if you don't have anything nice to say, pause and figure out how you can say it in a loving, direct way so that the issue can still be resolved.
I love it. And you just gave everyone an example of acknowledging something that we might have been socialized to believe,
Yep.
maybe especially in the South, that if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say it at all. But in the moment, a way of learning and growing, you modeled for everyone how to reframe that to fit your schema, to fit your framework for how you want to be better in a relationship. So that was a great example.
Tip number 4, seek to understand. James 1:19 says, everyone, that includes you, everyone should be quick to listen.
I think you should say that includes me.
That includes me.
And
should
me.
be
You and me.
quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. So take a moment, understand your partner's perspective before responding. Try to put yourself in their shoes and empathize with their emotions. Show that you value their opinion and that you're willing to work together to find a solution. This really creates an environment where both partners or both parties in the relationship feel heard and validated. It's also important to ask questions and show genuine interest in their thoughts and feelings. By seeking to understand, you really do create a deeper connection and mutual respect in the relationship. And that's, as we talked about in another episode, I'm going through counseling just to try to figure out and learn and better myself to be more empathetic with the relationships that I have. And number one, my spouse, as we're going through a difficult situation and trying to go through IVF process and have a baby and things that I can't really understand because I'm a guy. I'm learning how to be more empathetic with the feelings and the emotions that she's struggling with and dealing with, highs and lows. When she's excited, how do I learn to empathize and be more excited? And when she's really down, how do I learn to empathize and be connecting with her and be down with her and just support her in that moment?
And not try to fix it in that
Yeah,
moment.
not try to fix it as we talked about it. It doesn't need fixing, it just needs connecting and understanding.
Okay, and tip number 5 is forgive each other. There's a theme here in the last couple sessions. I've gotten this tip, so it translates to all things, and it's something that I certainly need to work on. But forgiveness is a key component of any healthy relationship. Holding on to grudges or resentment can damage the relationship, but forgiveness can heal and restore it. Now, I do want to pause here and say that forgiveness is a wide umbrella. And of course, when we're talking about forgiveness, that's heart work that really, it's my opinion, that really others can't tell you how and when and what that should look like, because we're not necessarily talking about a relationship where one is getting abused or neglected or something like that. And so I think sometimes that's part of the issue, especially in church communities, when we just paint forgiveness with a broad brush. Now, with that being the case, the Bible does say to do it and that we should practice it because Jesus first forgave us. But what I think that we can do as the Big C Church, so again, Christ followers, we can help people walk through that process and not push forgiveness on them, but walk through the hurt and the pain that they're feeling, to be empathetic, to be compassionate, so that God can work on their heart, and forgiveness, I believe, will eventually come in the way that it needs to. So with that, I want to go back to Colossians 3:13, which reminds us to forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. So it's important to forgive sincerely and let go of bitterness or anger. And forgiveness also doesn't mean forgetting or excusing the behavior, but it means choosing to let go of negative emotions and move forward, really for us, because again, God forgave us. I once heard a pastor say, choosing not to forgive someone is like drinking poison and hoping that they die.
So good.
Is that the right thing?
Yeah, that's the right thing.
Yeah, so drinking poison and hoping that they die. And that's unforgiveness. And so again, it really doesn't have so much to do with the other person, except for that if we want to remain in relationship with them, that creates a healthy and a safe and trusting environment. Now, if we don't want to remain in relationship with them, then that's okay too. But that forgiveness is hard work that, again, Jesus does command us to do that.
So effective communication is essential for building and maintaining healthy relationships. And by practicing active listening, speaking the truth in love, avoiding harsh words, seeking to understand, and then forgiving each other, you really can create a supportive and loving environment in your relationship. Remember that communication takes practice. It takes practice. It takes practice and effort, but the benefits are so worth it. So we want to encourage you, try to apply these tips in your relationships and let us know in the comments which one you find most helpful. And if you have any other helpful tips, we need help too.
Yes,
we're not perfect.
we do.
Post them in the comments. We'd love to see your tips and strategies for effective communication. Thanks again for watching. Thank you again for joining me, my amazing wife. We'll see you next time.